look, I don't care what side you're on, WLF, Seraphites, whatever. I would think that the thought of bringing a child into whatever this apocalypse is would scare people more. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. The 7th and final episode of season 2 of The Last of Us is here. It is called Convergence. It is it's a solid episode. I think overall, unlike the first season finale for season 1, this feels a lot less complete, and so you do feel like you're more on a cliffhanger, whereas that one felt like a complete story, which it was. That first season dealt with all of game 1, and this one is dealing with part of game 2, and so there is this sort of longing of like, all right, well, I'm missing something. I don't feel like I've been completely fulfilled. It's not a complete meal. Is not what you're getting with this season, and that should be how seasons feel for television. And so I'm a little bit more acceptive of that. I also think that this season, as a gamer, you can see that this season drops a lot of breadcrumbs to whatever we're going to get on the opposite side of season 3, which we can tell now is going to be the focal point of via Abby. I gotta say immediately when I saw that this was 49 minutes, my brain was like, "Oh crap, they're going to speed through a lot of this stuff." But I think they give an adequate amount of time to everything to sort of get to the point that we need to get to at the end of the season. I'm going to say this about this season of Last of Us. Does it rush through things? I don't know if it does. I think it repurposes things. I think a lot of times the stuff that we get from Ellie in the game, we spent longer times doing it because we were playing a game and they wanted to have long form content in the game form. When you truncate that down or take that point off or repurpose it, you can shrink that time down quite a bit. For instance, I'm going to use this as an example. In the game, Ellie returns to Utah, returns to the scene of the crime where Joel did this thing and just does a lot of investigation. That doesn't happen here because that sort of gets repurposed to the Eugene storyline where she is sort of triggered and it gets the information that Joel was responsible for all of this. And so they've done a good job of sort of putting it in this medium where we're going to take some of the things that were a little bit more long form, a little bit more tedious to make a full game, and we're going to truncate them and sort of get to the meats and bones of what this story is. And so we pick up at the end of the last episode on the Jesse and Dina piece of it, where he brought Dina back to the theater to get that arrow out. Now, my gamers know arrow does end up there. It ends up in Dina in a different part of her body and by a different means, but still the same. She is injured, and that's why she sort of is left there at the theater. But Jesse is tending to her wounds. He is going to pull the arrow out, and in that, he's like, I'm going to offer her some alcohol to sort of like numb herself so this doesn't hurt like all hell. And Dina's like, nope, don't want the alcohol. And she doesn't say why. We as an audience know why. Jesse sort of is trying to like put 2 and 2 together because he knows just over history, Dina ain't never been one to pass up a piece of alcohol. And so he's clocks that and sort of remembers that's odd. But he pulls the arrow out and heals her and then puts her to sleep. As Jesse stands watch, Ellie comes back and she's not telling Jesse what actually happened. She's refusing to. All she cares about is Dina okay? And Dina and the kids. She's basically checking to make sure that they're okay. She finds Dina. Dina lets her know that they're both fine. How she knows about the baby is more of just mother's intuition. She's like, nope, she's good. So they are she. I don't know what the baby's gender is, but she and the baby are good. And I was like, okay. Dina then clocks that there's a lot of blood on Ellie and sort of as to kind of like, let me help you, make you better. She takes her shirt off and just sees like all these wounds and scars. And it's at that point that Dina asks Ellie, like, what happened? And Ellie tells her, like, Nora's dead. And she kind of gives her a little bit of what happened. She's like, did she give up where Abby was? She's like, no, she gave me some clues, but she didn't sort of give it up. And I tried my damnedest to get it out of her. Dina asks if she killed her, and Ellie says no, she was already infected, so I kind of just let her die there. Although we see a shot of her sort of keep bashing her in to sort of get some interrogation out of her. It's far more brutal what we see in the game than here, and it is sort of 100% clear that she does eventually kill Nora, trying to get the information. But Dina says she deserved it. And Ellie is like, well, maybe she did. And then Cody's like, well, maybe she didn't. And it's at that point that Ellie lets Dina know what Joel did, and how Joel saved her and killed Abby's father and all of this. And Dina asked, did she know who these people were when they came? And Ellie said, no, I did not. But I did know what Joel had done. And so she sort of could put those together. And so Dina is kind of where Ellie was years ago when she sort of got the realization of what Joel did. Um, she's in this torn place of like, I don't know what to believe about Joel anymore. And because so Joel was sort of like a father figure to her too, but knowing that Joel did this and sort of started this endless loop of violence that they're in, which we'll talk about more as this goes along. We're in this endless loop of violence. And this sort of fractures the relationship that Dina has with Ellie because Ellie was not completely forthcoming with her. Dina would not have done this or gone on this trip with knowing that she was pregnant. Or she would have, well, she didn't start the trip knowing she was pregnant, but continue on in this knowing that she was pregnant had she had that information. Because I think Dina is of the sound mind of like, hey, this is just sort of the retribution and ramifications of what Joel did. It sucks. I love Joel, but I don't think I would have gone through all of this to make this happen because now we have a family to protect. And so she sort of becomes distant from Ellie. And it really reads as if Ellie didn't have to tell her this. Ellie chose to sort of push that away. And I don't know if it's just because the one person she had close to her was Joel, and now she sort of doesn't want to quite bring Dina in. It's a way of bringing Dina in, but it's also a way of pushing her out because she knew how this was going to respond. And so Dina kind of just becomes cold to Ellie. She still cares, but not nearly as she was in this episode's prior. Dina lays down and is like, yo, we need to go home. Like, I'm out. I'm done with whatever it is we're doing. We need to check out. So then they wake up the next day, and Jesse and Ellie are getting prepped to go find Tommy. They're going to go back to the bookstore where Jesse and Tommy used to meet at, and sort of collect Tommy to bring him back here so they can reconvene here. Dina, because she's in a bad way with a bad leg, she's going to stay back. Dina, still caring about Ellie, gives her a wristband to say for good luck, and Ellie's like, "This hasn't done you much good." And Dina's like, "Well, I'm still alive." I was like, "Touche, very good." And so Jesse and Ellie head off. They are cold to each other at first, but they eventually do start speaking to each other. I think this is where a little bit of the difference between the game to this happens because Jesse, we don't know that much about Jesse or his personality or his characteristics. We know that he is always willing to be the person to unselfishly walk into a room and help people, but we don't know much about him. And this lets us know that he, at the heart, is a good morally person. Um, but there is still a bit of a gray area to him, and we learn that in these conversations that we have back and forth. And so, as they're walking, Jesse kind of checks Ellie and be like, "Look, I don't know what it is that you gotten Dina and me and Tommy into, but I have a question because Dina has never been one to pass up alcohol, and now that you got her pregnant, and now that she's pregnant, and there's more at stake than there was before." And Ellie's like, "Oh crap, she's pregnant." And kind of, it was Jesse's way of testing the waters to see if she's pregnant. And Ellie just gives it up unknowingly. And Ellie keeps apologizing about, "Hey, I'm sorry I got you guys into this." And Jesse's like, "I don't care about your apologies anymore. Like, none of that matters at this current juncture. What needs to happen now is that we need to get Tommy and we need to get the hell up out of here because I'm going to be a father. Because I'm going to be a father, I have something to live for now, just like Dina has something to live for now. It's different. We're no longer doing this selfishly about ourselves and getting vengeance. We have a whole family to sort of protect and take care of." Because something he repeats here a lot is like, "So I can't die here. Like, just like Dina says she couldn't die and she can't die, I can't die here because I have something more to live for." Foreshadowing. So It starts raining. It's Seattle. Of course it does. It starts raining, and they take shelter in a garage. When they take shelter in the garage, they hear some gunshots happening. They take cover, they hide, and in what they see between a barricade, they're behind, they're covered, but they can see it. They see a Scar running, and then they see about 5 or 6 WLF agents at gunpoint, taking the Scar, beating him up, and then removing his clothes and taking him into capture. In this, Ellie is ready to jump and help. He's like, I need to help them. We need to stop them. And Jesse's like, no. We're not gonna do that. Some of this is his fatherly piece kicking in, like, nope, we're not gonna do this. But some of it is too, as we learn, he says this isn't our war. He's like, look, WLF and Scars have been fighting each other nonstop forever. And we are an outsider. We don't need to get involved into their war. That's not our communities. We don't need to worry about any of that. It's like they are doing unthinkable crap to each other. They're hanging each other. They're gutting each other. Intestines are falling all over the place. I'm not dying out here for these folks. I think in this moment, Ellie feels a little bit of connection to that Scar. She felt like, hey, this is how Joel found me. He took care of me. And then how I sort of was pinned down by a few WLF agents and no one could help me. I wanted to offer that to him. She feels that the Scar was helpless and is being sort of taken advantage of. She'll learn. We pick up with Isaac, who is mapping out and planning this big sort of attack, convergence, if you will, upon the Scar's humidity. And he can't find Abby. So one of his lieutenants come in and sort of gives a debrief that Owen and Mel are missing, which are part of Abby's team. Manny can't be found either. It's like all of Abby's squad is gone. And Isaac's like, well, it's really telling that all of Abby's folks are gone right now. And his lieutenant comes in and is like, real quick, we have other folks. We have other people besides them. And Isaac's like, yeah, we have plenty of Manny's. We got plenty of people that can be Owen and Mel's. We only got one Abby. And she's questioning, why is Abby so important? Like, do you got a thing for, like, you want to bang? I know she's young. I know old men with young women. And Isaac's like, hold on a moment. Have a seat. And what he says is that these WLF folks are sheep. We can tell them whatever it is we want to tell them. They're going to follow behind whatever it is we have. And so it's important to know that about Isaac. Isaac, in that truck scene that happened earlier in the season, is important that he is well aware that these people are weak-minded individuals and that he has the gift of gab and the gift of power that he can sort of imprint his thoughts on people. And he knows that these folks are weak and they'll do whatever he wants to say. So he is being advantageous about the weak-minded folks that he has. But in that, he says, we need Abby because after tonight, there's a good chance that I'm dead and there's a good chance that you're dead. And Abby is going to be the person that needs to lead the WLF after we're gone. And so I have sort of built her up to be that next person. And Lieutenant's like, well, she ain't here. So you might need to find somebody else because clearly she wasn't that person. So Jesse and Ellie make it back to the bookstore. Tommy's not there. They can't find Tommy. And then they have a little bit moment to converse again. And in that, Jesse tells Ellie that I love Dina, but not in the way that you love Dina. Like, I know you have a thing for Dina, but it's not the same. I care a great deal about her. But he was like, there was a girl who I fell madly in love with. And it was probably the greatest 2 weeks of my life that I possibly could have. But she wanted to stay with her family. So she went to New Mexico and I stayed back. And Ellie's like, well, why did you stay back? He's like, well, Jackson needed me. Like, I needed to build this stuff up for Jackson. Jackson had a community. And Ellie gets a little defensive because she's like, oh, well, so you feel so good because you are this great white shining armor that you can go ahead and take care of, stay back and give up your things because you're doing the best thing for Jackson. And I'm less of a person because I did not stay back for Jackson and did this revenge tour that I have. They then hear a radio signal that says that somebody has got some WLF agents pinned down from a sniper. And they're like, oh, crap, that's Tommy. Tommy's the one sniping. So they get up to the rooftop to try to get a better angle as to where that shot is coming from. They find it. They get a general idea of where Tommy's shooting at. And then Ellie sees with the binoculars the aquarium. She puts together the whale comment that I believe Nora stated and says, like, that's where they're hiding. They're at the aquarium. And so she's like, cool, we need to go over there. And Jesse's like, you just heard that Tommy is, we know where Tommy is. Tommy's over there. And Ellie's like, we don't know that for sure. And like, nope, we got a pretty damn good idea. That's where he's at. And you want to just throw it out all away to go get your vengeance. And this is where there are multiple things that happen in this episode where Ellie could take the ship and go back and say, hey, I'm going to break the cycle of violence. I'm going to let it all go. Like, bygones be bygones. The universe is sort of telling her, hey, maybe leave this alone. She wants no part of that. But she also sort of throws in Jesse's face, you're not that good of a person. You're going to go and save Tommy, which is fine. I understand that. But at the end of the day, Tommy would be coming with me. Like if Tommy was here, he would say, go over there to go get Abby and go do that, not come get him. And it's in this that we sort of have Ellie throw back at Jesse, like, hey, Joel was my community. Like that's who my community was. And you're saying like, hey, we don't have to fight this fight. We don't have to do all of this. All of this is for naught. But Joel was my community and he was taken away from me. I watched him die in front of me. That was my community. What we're seeing is that everybody has sort of like wearing their flag colors. Like if you're not a Scars, I'm against you. If you're not a WLF, I'm against you. If you're not a part of this clique that Ellie has, I'm against you. And they pick and choose when they want to be the savior in this world. Jesse, if he was that morally good, would have done something about that Scar that was getting murdered. But because he's not part of his community, I'm going to sit this one out. Don't concern me. But I'm going to go take care of mine. Ellie is sort of having that same mindset. And so she is like, screw it. If Tommy was here, we would go this way. Also, if 3 more people voted like you did, we would have gone there anyway. And Jesse lets her know, like, I didn't vote for you. Like I voted no. And Ellie's kind of like taken aback, which I kind of had a feeling, especially now that we've sort of seen that Jesse is sort of this Boy Scout of like Jackson first, be damned of what it does to everything else. But he throws back to you, Ellie, everything you do is for you. It wasn't best for the community. And that's when we get the whole community piece. And so they go their own separate ways. Jesse does say like, I hope you make it. And he goes to go get Tommy and she goes towards the aquarium. In her route to the aquarium, Ellie sees a couple of WLF agents on a bridge, and she's about to fire off on them. There's only 2 of them. She's about to shoot them, and then we see about 7 or 8 boats coming up with their lights on, and they're just weaponing up. They're putting weapons on the boats, and you can see Isaac is leading the charge, and they are moving off to go attack. That'll come full circle. A lot, again, what's happening in this season will have a brighter light shined on it once we get to next season and we see Abby's viewpoint. But she could have been, if she had pulled the trigger, she would have been dead to rights, because there was a lot more of them than there were of her. But she lets them go, and then she finds a boat, and she gets in the boat, and she starts making a beeline to the aquarium. Hell or high water, she's going to get to that damn aquarium. So she starts making her way over, and then the waters are pretty rough and choppy, and so her boat gets capsized, and she eventually gets like washed over to shore. The shore that she gets washed over to, however, is Scar Village, and so one of those young kid Scars that she was willing to save moments ago, lets you know community matters so much in this world. They capture Ellie, string her up, and the kid is the one that gives the orders to kill Ellie, to hang her. So they put a rope around her neck and start to bring her to her death. This part is not a part of the game. This is new. Ellie going to an island and seeing the Scar Village does not happen on her story. We do eventually get the Scar Village, but it's not until Abby's story. I think it's important to see here, though. Like, I like the add-on. Like, I like it a lot, actually. It does a couple of things. One, it establishes how dark and crazy that village is, because when we get there and see there later, it's going to have a lot of weight. It shows the dichotomy of, like, Ellie was willing to save a Scar, but they weren't willing to save her, and sort of this vicious cycle that sort of happens. People are willing to protect their community and whatnot. But I think the biggest thing that it shows is that Ellie, the universe is telling you, hey, you was about to die. You might just say, let's just call it what it is. Let's go back to the theater, go get Tommy and head on out of here. Luckily, she gets a lifeline, and the village is being attacked. So once we saw those boats going around, this is the big attack that Isaac and the WLF was making on the Scar Village. They hear the horns and they run off. They're like, look, screw her, leave her here, let's go. And so they head off and leave her alive. This would be a good time for Ellie to be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go back home. But nope, she sees that aquarium and she continues to make a beeline. She is 100% set on vengeance. And it's a funny thing that Joel said in the last episode, like, hey, I want you to be a better person, better parent than I was. In this, she is failing at that miserably, because this would have been the time to be like, yeah, let me go back to my kid. She's not. She even got a book for him from the bookstore. Don't matter. There's moments where she has, like, I want to do a good thing, but for something keeps backing her in the back of her head and keeps nipping at her. I need to get this vengeance. I need to go kill these folks. She gets to the aquarium. She breaks in. We see a lot of galls and red, newly fresh blood on these galls and whatnot. Those are tidbits and tips. There's a lot of things that happen in this. There's a crane that we see. There's a lot of pieces in this episode that will mean a lot more when we get to the other side of it. Because the great pieces of the aquarium happen on Abby's side, not Ellie's side. She's making her way through the corridor and she finds Owen and Mel in media res of a conversation. And it's in regards to Abby. You can tell that Owen is willing, he has pledged his allegiance to Abby, so he's going to do sort of whatever it is that Abby wants. You can get that little piece in here, and Mel is like, I'm done with Abby. I'm sick of her shit. Let's leave that alone. It is then that they spot Ellie. And Ellie's like, look, point me to where Abby is. Like, you guys were just talking about her, so I know you know. Point on that map that you guys are working on where Abby is. And here's what I want you to do. Mel, you point once, and then Owen, you point. And if it's in different places, then I know you guys are lying to me. And Owen says, like, she's going to kill us no matter what. So let's take our shot. And Ellie's like, no, I'm not like you. I'm not going to just kill you. Owen then pulls his gun on Ellie, and Ellie shoots. It goes through Owen, through and through, ricochets off of a cabinet, and then comes back and hits and kills Mel. It's a little bit different in the game here, in how everything sort of happens. She still does kill both of them. What's really different here, though, is that Ellie approaches Mel. She takes off her jacket and shows that she was pregnant with a child. And that sort of starts setting Ellie back. Because, look, Ellie was perfectly fine setting ablaze and burning everything down for the folks that were violent and who actually had a say in all of this. She didn't want to take an innocent life. And so this is what sort of starts hitting at Ellie's conscience and her soul. She starts to feel like, oh crap, have I tiptoed across that edge? Have I gone too far? What's even crazier here is that Mel asked Ellie to take the baby out. Not a part of the game. Mel asked her to take the baby out, like save the baby. And unfortunately, Ellie doesn't have enough experience in life to do so. And before Mel can sort of get the words out how to do it, she dies. So sad, because she is like, did you get it out? Did you get it out? Is she out? It's heartbreaking. It's a gut wrench. And Ellie is sitting there broken because she has taken this too far. She has killed someone who had an innocent life in there. And because she's about to be a parent too, she now knows, like, what if this happened on the other side? So there's just a lot of emotions that are happening through her brain. And she's just sitting there broken and crying. Tommy and Jesse come to get her and get her out of there. And then they head back to the theater. She is a shell of herself. They enter into the theater. Dina opens it up. But Ellie doesn't really say anything to Dina because she's just broken. We then see in the theater piece, the auditorium section, that Tommy and Jesse are sort of trying to figure out where to, how to get out of Seattle. Like, all right, here's what we're going to plan. Because right now the plan is we're just going to leave. And so Ellie has to sort of make peace with that. And Ellie is broken. Ellie is kind of a shell of herself. And Tommy's like, look, they were in on it. Like, I know it sucks that we killed an innocent life, but they were in on this. And so they chose this path, killing them out. You shouldn't feel bad about either of them. They made their choice, and that's really all there is to it. So Tommy's very matter of fact about this. Like, there's no gray area for him, which is a lot of people in this world. Like, you're either the good guy or the bad guy. And I think what we're learning about this series, this game, if you've done any of this, there is no such thing as a protagonist and antagonist. Everybody has good days, bad days, and they what justifies them to do the things that they do will make you love or hate them. You'll fall on either side of that line, and I think that's what the richness of this story is. To this point, that Tom is like, well, you're going to have to make peace that Abby's still out there, and Ellie's like, yeah, I guess I will. And so it seemed like in this moment, for this brief moment, I call BS because we've seen how Ellie goes back and forth, but it seems like in this very moment, Ellie is willing to sort of let Abby live and just move on with her life because she has something to live for. Tommy's like, all right, well, we're gonna go pack up. I'm gonna go pack up and get our stuff together, and we're gonna make our move. As a gamer, as Tommy walks out there, my heart immediately started beating quickly because I'm like, no, Tommy, don't go out there. Just stay here forever, and everything will be fine. Tommy goes out there, and then Jesse and Ellie have a moment. Ellie says thanks to Jesse for coming back to get her. And Jesse's like, tries to throw it on Tommy's like, I didn't come back to get you. Tommy wanted to come back to get you. And I was like, really? Is that really what happened? And Jesse's like, no, I came back to get you. And I did it because I know that if I were in the same situation, you would burn everything down to come get me. And Ellie's like, yeah, I would, because Jesse is part of Ellie's community. She would do the same for that. They all of a sudden start hearing gunshots and commotions in the front of the theater. And so they start sprinting towards that door, running head first. Jesse opens the door first, and he takes a bullet to the face and is killed immediately. Yeah. That feeling that you guys got watching the show, had that in the game. And it's an immediate thing. And I think it works a lot more here too, because we just know more about Jesse here than we do in the game. But Jesse's probably the one morally good person. Even Tommy sort of wavers on that, like, vengeance first. Jesse sort of is like, I'm going to do the morally good thing. And he takes a bullet for it. What we learn in this world is that a lot of times the people that are not selfish, that are unselfish, end up in a bad way. And the folks that are selfish end up gaining power or gaining some type of lifelong ability to just stay alive for a very, very extended period of time. Person that shoots him is Abby. Abby is there and has Tommy dead to rights with a gun on him. And it's at that point that Ellie comes out. She's like, drop your weapon, come out. And Ellie comes out, and Abby immediately clocks who it is. She's like, look, I need to kill him. He killed all my friends. And Ellie's like, no, it wasn't him. It was me. I'm who you want. I'm the one who killed all your people. I know what Joel did. And then Abby says immediately, like, I let you live and you wasted it. And then she takes her gun, trains it on Ellie, and we hear a gunshot. And then it goes to black. Happens in the game just like that as well. We then, as gamers know, we're going to flip POVs. And so season 3, we get a little tag here, is going to be through the eyes of Abby. And so it opens up with Abby waking up at the WLF compound, which is in the big stadium. She goes to go see this massive football stadium they have and all their operations and whatnot, just to see how large WLF is. And then we see the tag that says Seattle Day 1. So what we're learning is that we're going to go through these 3 days in Seattle from Abby's point of view, while she's the person that's being hunted, while what's happening on her, while her friends are sort of being picked off. And it's a great way to sort of end this and know that Kaitlyn Dever is going to be the lead, our main focal point for season 3. And that's how the episode ends. I knew it was going to end at the theater. Like, the theater piece is where it had to end before we switch focus. It's going to be crazy because season 3, the stuff that happens to Abby is nuts. And it's much larger in scale than what happens a lot to Ellie. Because Ellie spends a lot of this time moving in the shadows. Abby has big set pieces. There's a whole crane sequence that's just massive. The scars, like there's a whole sequence that happens there. Everything that she goes through is a lot more elevated and a lot more treacherous, honestly. And so you're going to feel at the end of the day, when all is said and done, when you look at both Abby and Ellie, you're not going to know which of the two of them you actually feel more for. In this moment, it's Ellie because you had a connection with Joel, you had a connection with Joel and Ellie, and because Joel was taken off the board by Abby, she is what gets your ire. This season 3 is going to put a lot of things where you start questioning and start feeling a little bit more empathetic toward Abby, and then you're going to end up at the end of this like, yeah, all of y'all are shitty people. Like all of y'all are. And that is what makes for a rich story. And so I don't love this season the way that I loved the last season. Some of that is because of the way that Bella kind of played Ellie towards the middle of it. But that last episode, the flashback episode, I loved it. And then this episode showed me a little bit more range to Ellie. She got a little bit more of the broken piece of it. I just wish it was a little bit longer and we could have done just a bit more I don't know, fleshing out of her character. Because I feel like a lot of the pieces are she does this because the story says for her to do it. And I think that might be the acting piece from those few episodes that I think Ellie was still acting juvenile when she should not have been. I'm all in for season 3 though, because I think Kaitlyn Dever is a rock star, and I think whatever we're going to get from her and the Jeffrey Wright piece of it all, if we see Lev, if he shows up, which it's not clear from the way that they shoot that theater sequence if anybody else is there with Abby. I think the biggest thing that I have a problem with is that there's going to be some time before we get this season 3. Probably not as long as the previous because we had the writer strike in between, but I would like them to already have started filming. They may have because they don't need the entire cast to film. They don't need the Bella and Isabella to do this. They just need Kaitlyn and that crew. But we'll still see. Those are my thoughts. What did you guys think about this episode called Convergence? Leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on X at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.